My name is Renata Aguilar. I am 39 years old. And when I walked out of my mother-in-law's kitchen last Thursday evening, with my daughter's hand still gripping the seam of my coat pocket, I could taste copper in my mouth from where I had been pressing teeth into the inside of my cheek for the better part of an hour. Let me tell you how we got there. The coat was a gray wool pea coat I had bought at a consignment shop in Silver Spring the winter before my wedding. It had a loose button on the left cuff that I kept meaning to fix. I was holding that button between my thumb and forefinger when I stepped off Claudette's porch into a night that smelled like wet mulch and someone's fireplace 3 houses over. My daughter, Marisol, was 5. She did not ask me why we were leaving early. She had already learned to read the temperature of a room by watching what I did with my hands. I drove 11 minutes to a Holiday Inn Express on Route 29. I requested a room on the 2nd floor because Marisol liked looking down at parking lots. She arranged the hotel pillows into a fort while I sat on the edge of the bathtub with the door cracked open, running cold water over my wrists. My phone had 14% battery. Plugged it in and watched the screen stay dark. Marcus did not call. He did not text. At 11:47 that night, I opened my laptop on the hotel desk and logged into a system I had not accessed from a personal device in 4 years. That was the moment I stopped being his wife and started being something he had never accounted for. Before I take you back to where this started, tell me, what time is it where you are right now? Because I remember exactly what time it was the night everything changed. Some moments burn the clock into your memory. The evening had begun 6 hours earlier, at Claudette's house. Claudette Whitmore is Marcus's mother. She and his stepfather, Gerald, had spent 11 months renovating their kitchen in Kensington. New quartz countertops, a 6-burner Wolf range, custom cabinetry with soft close hinges, and a farmhouse sink imported from a supplier in Vermont. The unveiling dinner was supposed to be a celebration. Claudette had invited Marcus, me, Marcus's sister Janine, Gerald's 2 adult sons from his first marriage, Claudette's best friend Lorraine, and our daughter Marisol. I had brought a casserole dish of roasted cauliflower gratin because Claudette had told Marcus I should bring a vegetable. Not asked me, told Marcus. That was how requests moved through that family. Instructions traveled through him, arrived to me pre-decided, and I was expected to execute without comment. The gratin took me 90 minutes. Claudette placed it on the counter. Placed it on the counter behind the breadbasket where no one could see it. Marcus and I had been married for 7 years. We met at a conference in Baltimore, where Izadz was presenting on compounding variance tolerances, and he was selling point-of-sale software to independent pharmacies. He told me later that he had no idea what my presentation was about. But he liked the way I held a laser pointer, like I was conducting something. I should have paid more attention to the fact that what attracted him was not what I did, but how I looked doing it. I am a pharmaceutical compounding quality auditor. I work for a mid-Atlantic consulting firm that contracts with hospital pharmacies, compounding facilities, and specialty labs. My job is to enter a facility, examine its documentation, observe its processes, and determine whether what they claim to be doing matches what they are actually doing. I compare batch records against raw material invoices. I cross-reference expiration dates with supplier certificates of analysis. I verify that the name on the SOP matches the name on the training log, and that both match the initials on the compounding worksheet. I catch discrepancies that exist in the space between what a document says and what actually happened. That skill had exposed compliance failures in 17 facilities across 4 states. It was about to dismantle the financial architecture of my own marriage. The dinner started at 6:30. By 7:15, Claudette had already corrected Marisol's posture twice and told her to use the cloth napkins, not the paper ones, because the cloth ones are for family. Marisol is 5. She looked at me. I handed her a cloth napkin and said nothing. Marcus carved the roast. Gerald poured wine. Janine sat across from me, scrolling through her phone with one hand and eating bread with the other. At 7:40, Claudette stood at the head of her new island and raised her glass. She thanked Gerald for financing the renovation. She thanked the contractor by name. She thanked Janine for helping choose the backsplash tile. Then she looked at Marcus and said, "And of course, none of this would have been possible without my son's generosity. Marcus has been covering our monthly expenses since Gerald's back surgery, so we could put everything toward the kitchen." Marcus smiled. He did not look at me. I set my fork down and folded my hands in my lap. I did not blink. I was already running numbers I had not asked myself to run. Gerald's back surgery had been 14 months ago. Our savings account had dropped by just over $22,000 in that period. Marcus had attributed the losses to a slow quarter at work, an increased insurance premium, and a property tax adjustment on our townhouse. I had accepted each explanation individually. Sitting in that kitchen, hearing Claudette's toast, the explanations collapsed into a single column, and the column balanced. That was the first time I went still. Not calm, still. The way I go still when a batch record has one digit transposed and the facility manager is smiling too confidently. When the toast ended, I said, "Congratulations, Claudette. The kitchen is beautiful." My voice sounded normal. Marcus glanced at me with something close to gratitude. He heard compliance. What he could not hear was the audit that had already opened inside me. After dinner, Claudette pulled me into the hallway while Marcus and Gerald argued about basketball. In the living room, she had a way of positioning her body between you and the nearest exit. She held both my hands, which meant I could not cross my arms. "Renata," she said, "Marcus told me you've been resistant to the idea of Marisol attending Whitfield Academy next fall. I've already spoken with the admissions director. Gerald and I would like to cover tuition, but Marcus says you keep insisting on public school." I had never heard of Whitfield Academy. Marcus and I had not discussed private school. The application deadline, I would later learn, had passed 2 weeks earlier. He had already submitted it. "Claudette, Marcus and I haven't made any decisions about Marisol's schooling." She tilted her head with a patience that was not patience. "Sweetheart, the decision's been made. We just need you to sign the financial aid waiver so the family contribution doesn't affect the package." I pulled my hands free. "What financial aid waiver? It's a formality. Marcus has the paperwork." I felt the loose button on my coat cuff between my fingers. I had picked up my coat without realizing it. I was already calculating how long it would take to get Marisol's shoes on and reach the car. "I need to talk to Marcus before I sign anything." Claudette's expression did not change. "Of course, but the deadline was last Friday, so I'd appreciate it if you didn't delay things further." That was the sentence. Not shouted, not cruel in any way a bystander could name. Spoken the way a project manager reminds a subcontractor about a deliverable. "I'd appreciate it if you didn't delay things further," as though my role in my daughter's education was clerical. I found Marcus in the living room. I asked him to step outside. On the porch in 30-degree air, I asked him about Whitfield Academy. He shifted his weight. Mom got excited. "I was going to bring it up this weekend." "You already submitted the application." "It's just an application, Renata. It doesn't commit us to anything. Your mother says there's a financial aid waiver that requires my signature. That means someone disclosed our household income. Who filled out the financial section?" Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. "Mom helped me with the numbers. Your mother has access to our financial information? She's helping us, Renata. I stared at the porch railing. A spider had built a web between the post and the gutter. It was geometrically precise. Marcus, did you tell your mother how much I earn? She asked. And you gave her my salary information without asking me. He exhaled. Get out of your head, Renata. This isn't an audit. This is family. That was when Marcus's tone shifted, not to anger, to authority. The same register he used when he believed a conversation had lasted longer than it should. He stepped past me toward the door. We'll discuss it at home, he said. We'll discuss it now. He turned. His face was calm. Renata, I am not going to argue with you on my mother's porch while our daughter is inside eating cake. Either come back in and be pleasant, or get out. Get out. Marisol appeared in the doorway, holding a paper plate with a slice of Gerald's pound cake. She looked at Marcus, then at me, then back at Marcus. She set the plate down on the porch rail carefully, the way she set things down when she was trying not to make noise. I picked up my daughter. I carried her to the car. I buckled her in. I did not take the cake. Snorts. The irony is that I have spent my entire career verifying that institutions are doing what they say they're doing. I have flagged discrepancies in controlled substance logs, caught mismatched lot numbers on certificates of analysis, and identified unauthorized changes to master formulas. But I had never once audited the one institution I trusted most. My marriage had been operating outside its own SOPs for years, and I had signed off on every review without pulling a single source document. And that is what I was carrying when I drove to that hotel. Not heartbreak, not even anger yet. A professional suspicion that the numbers would not hold up under examination. The next morning, I called my attorney, Grace Nakamura. Grace had handled my townhouse, closing 3 years earlier, and I trusted her thoroughness. I told her what Claudette had said at dinner, what Marcus had admitted on the porch, and what I suspected about our savings. Grace asked me to gather bank statements, tax returns, and any financial documents I could access without disturbing our joint accounts. She would file a petition for temporary financial orders if the evidence supported it. I did not touch the joint accounts. I did not move money. I did not change passwords. Instead, I did what I do at the beginning of every audit. I requested records and I read them. The first document I examined was the Whitfield Academy application. Marcus had saved it as a PDF in our shared cloud drive. The file properties showed it had been created on a device named Claudette Laptop. The author field read C. Whitmore. Claudette had not helped Marcus with the numbers. Claudette had filled out the entire application herself, on her own computer, using our financial information. That was layer 1. The obvious insult. My mother-in-law had applied to a private school on behalf of my daughter, using my income data, without my knowledge or consent. Then I found something else. I opened the financial aid section. The household income figure was accurate to the dollar, which meant someone had accessed our tax return. But the application also listed a family contribution commitment of $4, $200 per year from Gerald and Claudette, and a parental contribution of $14,800, drawn from what the form described as father's business income and family support reserves. We did not have business income. Marcus was a salaried employee. The phrase family support reserves appeared nowhere in our financial records. I printed the page and circled the line. Someone had invented an asset category that did not exist. I pulled 18 months of bank statements. The pattern was not subtle once I knew what to look for. Transfers to an account ending in 4471, made on the 1st and 15th of each month. Some labeled Gerald Medical, some labeled Mom Help, some had no label at all. The total across 18 months was $22,350. I called the bank's fraud verification line and asked them to confirm the routing number associated with account 4F471. The routing number belonged to a credit union in Rockville, Gerald and Claudette's joint account. But 3 of the transfers, totaling $6,100, had been routed to a different account, one I did not recognize. The routing number belonged to a brokerage. I asked Grace to subpoena the records. When those records arrived, the second cold math moment hit. I sat at my kitchen table at 2:09 a.m. with the documents fanned out in front of me. The brokerage account was in Claudette's name only, not joint with Gerald. It had been opened 9 months earlier, 1 month after Gerald's surgery. The $6,100 from our savings had been deposited alongside other transfers from at least 2 additional sources. I recognized one, Janine's checking account. Claudette had been siphoning money from her own children into a private investment account her husband did not know about. I stared at the account summary for a long time. My hands were flat on the table, pressing down as though the documents might shift if I did not hold them still. Something in me was running numbers I had not asked it to run. The total in the brokerage account was $41,600. She had built it in 9 months, Lotwares 2. The hidden setup. The kitchen renovation had not been financed entirely by redirecting household expenses. Claudette had supplemented it with money taken from her children under the guise of helping Gerald recover. Gerald did not know about the brokerage account. Gerald did not know the full amount his wife had collected from Marcus and Janine. I'm going to show you what I found next. But first, where are you watching from? Leave it in the comments. I want to know how many people are in the room when the truth finally gets said out loud. Lazy 3 required me to go back further than 18 months. Grace obtained 3 years of bank records through the temporary financial order she had filed. The pattern predated Gerald's surgery. Claudette had been receiving irregular transfers from Marcus for at least 31 months, since before Marisol was born. The early transfers were smaller, $200 here, $350 there, always framed as temporary help. One email from Marcus to Claudette, dated 11 months before the surgery, read, "Sending $400 this week. Don't mention it to Renata, she gets weird about money stuff. My professional life was built on tracking where money goes and whether the documentation supports the movement. Marcus had reframed my core competency as a personality flaw, so his mother would know to hide from me. But Claudette's pattern went further back than Marcus. Grace's paralegal pulled archived emails from Claudette's correspondence with Janine. Claudette had borrowed $8,000 from Janine in 2019 for what she described as a tax shortfall. Janine was 24 at the time, 2 years into her first teaching job. She never saw the money again. When she asked about repayment, Claudette responded, "Janine, your father and I raised you. That money was always ours in a way that matters more than accounting." Layer 3. The older pattern. This was not a mother struggling after her husband's surgery. This was a woman who had been extracting money from her children for years, adjusting the story to fit the crisis, and relying on family loyalty to prevent anyone from comparing notes. Layer 4 arrived in the brokerage account's transaction history. 3 of the deposits were labeled WOA deposit, M. Whitmore. Whitfield Academy, Marcus Whitmore. I called the school's business office and asked whether a deposit had been made toward a prospective student's tuition account. The registrar confirmed that $3, she's funding the venue deposit, $200 had been deposited into a tuition reserve under Marisol's name, paid from Claudette's brokerage account. Claudette had taken from Essen the pretense of Gerald's medical expenses, routed it through her private brokerage, and deposited it at Whitfield Academy to secure Marisol's enrollment, an enrollment I had never authorized. My mother-in-law had not been helping our family. She's funding the venue deposit. She had been building a financial pipeline that started in my savings account and ended in a school enrollment designed to give her authority over my daughter's education. That document was the one I was carrying when I walked into Claudette's kitchen 3 weeks later. And that is what I was thinking about when I stepped off her porch into the cold. Now I need to take you back to that kitchen. To the meeting I requested in the room Claudette believed was her monument. I asked for the meeting to take place in Claudette's home, not because it was convenient, because she had spent 11 months turning that kitchen into proof that her family thrived under her management. The Wolf Range, the soft close cabinets, the farmhouse sink. I wanted the truth told in the room her lies had built. Present were Marcus, Claudette, Gerald, Janine, Grace Nakamura, and me. Marisol was with my mother. I would not let my daughter witness what was about to happen. I placed a folder on the quartz countertop. I did not open it. I've asked everyone here, because there are financial discrepancies in this family that affect all of us. I'd like to go through them. Claudette crossed her arms. Renata, this is my home. If you have a problem with Marcus, take it to your lawyer's office. My lawyer is here, I said, and the problem isn't only with Marcus. I opened the folder. I placed the Whitfield Academy application on the counter. I pointed to the author field. This application was created on your laptop, Claudette. You listed income from a business Marcus doesn't own, and described our savings as family support reserves. You applied to a school for my daughter without my knowledge, using my financial information. Claudette did not look at the document. Marcus asked me to help. I was organizing things for him. The file was created 2 weeks before Marcus mentioned the school to me. The author metadata shows your name and your device. Marcus shifted. Renata, this isn't the time. I placed the bank statements next. 18 months. Every transfer highlighted in yellow. The total written in red at the bottom of the final page. $22,350. This is the money you sent your parents from our joint savings, Marcus. You told me the account was declining because of insurance premiums and tax adjustments. His face went flat. My parents needed help. Dad had surgery. I'm not disputing Gerald's surgery. I'm showing you that you lied about where our money went. Gerald leaned forward. He had not seen the number before. His mouth opened, then closed. He looked at Claudette. Then I placed the brokerage account statement on the counter. Claudette's private account. The one Gerald did not know existed. Claudette's resistance began in earnest. That is my personal financial business. You had no right to access that. A court order authorized the subpoena. The account received $6,100 from our joint savings, routed through transfers you told Marcus were for Gerald's medical expenses. You're twisting this into something it isn't. She turned to Marcus. Are you going to let her interrogate me in my own kitchen? Marcus said nothing. This is what you do, Renata, Claudette continued. You take something generous and make it ugly. You've always resented this family. Claudette, I have the routing numbers. I have the dates. I have the deposit confirmations. After everything I've done for your daughter, after everything Gerald and I sacrificed so Marcus could build a life. Gerald's voice came from the end of the counter. Quiet. Claudette, what is the brokerage account? She did not answer him. I placed the final document, the tuition deposit confirmation from Whitfield Academy. $3,200 deposited from Claudette's brokerage into an account under Marisol's name. You took money from your son under the pretense of medical expenses, moved it in the venue deposit, moved it into a private investment account your husband didn't know about, and used it to enroll my daughter in a school I never agreed to. You didn't ask me because you weren't offering to help. You were purchasing authority over a decision that was mine to make. Claudette's eyes went to Marcus, then Gerald, then Janine, searching for someone who would intervene. No one moved. Then the front door opened. Arthur Spellman, the Whitmore family's CPA for 11 years, walked in carrying a leather portfolio. Grace had asked him to attend. Arthur had prepared the family's taxes for over a decade. He had seen every return, every deduction, every declared and undeclared transfer. He had been advising Gerald independently since the surgery. Gerald asked me to bring the household financials for the last 3 years, Arthur said, setting the portfolio beside my folder. Claudette, the numbers your children described to me do not match what was reported on your joint returns. There are unreported transfers and an undisclosed account. Claudette sat down on one of her new bar stools. Her hand rested on the quartz countertop she had built with misdirected money. I looked at Marcus. Claudette decides what your money is for, where your daughter goes to school, and who is allowed to ask questions. And you let her, because agreeing with your mother has always been easier than standing next to me. Silence filled the kitchen. The wolf range ticked as it cooled. Marcus did not defend himself. He did not defend Claudette. He stared at the bank statements as if the yellow highlighting had rearranged his understanding of the last 3 years. Gerald stood. He picked up the brokerage statement and read every line. Then he folded it and placed it in his shirt pocket. He did not raise his voice. He said, "I need to go home, my home." He looked at Claudette. "Not this kitchen." He walked out through the front door. Janine had been sitting on the window seat with her arms around her knees. She had not spoken during the entire meeting. But when Gerald left, she looked at Claudette and said, "You told me the $8,000 was for taxes. I ate rice and canned soup for 4 months to send you that money." Claudette pressed her lips together. "Janine, you don't understand the full picture. I understand that I was 24 and you told me Dad would lose the house." Janine left next. She did not look at me on her way out. Grace handed Marcus a formal separation agreement and a proposed parenting schedule. He signed the acknowledgement of receipt without protest. His hands were shaking. I collected my folder from the countertop. I left the tuition deposit confirmation in front of Claudette. Let her sit with it in her monument. The consequences arrived at their own pace. Within 10 days, Gerald retained his own attorney. Arthur Spellman filed amended tax returns reflecting the undisclosed transfers and the brokerage account. The IRS would later assess a penalty of $7,400, payable by Claudette. Gerald moved into his older son's guest room, while the financial separation was assessed. He and Claudette did not divorce immediately, but he required full transparency over every account and the closure of the brokerage before he would consider reconciliation. Marcus signed a repayment agreement for the $22,350. Monthly installments, documented, drawn from his salary alone. He did not contest the terms. He moved into a studio apartment 4 miles from our townhouse. His parenting time with Marisol was every Wednesday evening and alternating weekends, structured and consistent. Claudette called me once, 5 days after the meeting. Her voice was smaller than I had ever heard it. "Renata, I want to explain." I listened. She told me about Gerald's declining pension, about her fear that retirement would leave them dependent, about how managing her children's money made her feel necessary. I did not interrupt. When she finished, I said, "Claudette, I hear you, but you enrolled my daughter in a school, using money you took from us and hid from your own husband. Fear does not explain forgery." She did not call again for 3 weeks. Whitfield Academy refunded the $3,200 tuition deposit after Grace submitted a formal withdrawal and evidence that the enrollment had been made without parental authorization. The money was returned to our joint savings account, where it sat beside the slow monthly repayments Marcus was making. Janine called me on a Saturday morning 2 weeks after the meeting. She sounded tired. "I should have said something years ago," she said. "When Mom took the $8,000, I told myself it was family. When she started asking Marcus for money, I knew, and I didn't warn you. Why not? Because if I told you, I'd have to admit she did the same thing to me. And I wasn't ready to be that person in the family. The one who breaks it open. I understood that. I did not tell her it was okay. Thank you for telling me now, I said. Janine asked if she could see Marisol sometime. I told her we could arrange something when things were more settled. 6 weeks after the confrontation, Marcus asked if we could meet at a coffee shop near Marisol's daycare. He arrived carrying a notebook. He had been seeing a therapist, he said. He had been examining why his mother's disappointment carried more weight than his wife's dignity. My therapist asked me when I started lying for my mother. He said. I couldn't remember a time when I didn't. I wrapped both hands around my coffee cup. It was too hot to drink, but I needed something to hold. I'm not asking you to come back, he said. I'm asking if you'll do counseling with me, so I can understand what I broke. I agreed to 6 sessions, not as a path back to the marriage, as an audit of what the marriage had actually been, stripped of the story we both told ourselves. During our 4th session, the counselor asked me what I had sacrificed to maintain peace in the family. I did not have to think long. I deferred a credential I'd been working toward for 2 years. The Certified Pharmaceutical GMP Professional Exam. Every time I scheduled the study block, something in Marcus's family required my time or money or silence. I kept moving the date. Marcus looked at me. I didn't know that. You didn't ask. 3 months after the separation, I registered for the exam. I studied at the kitchen table after Marisol was asleep, in the quiet of a house that no longer required me to manage anyone's pride. I passed on the first attempt. The certificate arrived in a white envelope on a Tuesday afternoon. I opened it standing at the mailbox, read my full name printed in clean black letters, and carried it inside without telling anyone. It was mine. It did not need an audience. Janine came to Marisol's ballet recital 4 months after the kitchen. She sat 2 rows behind me and did not approach until I turned around. She's beautiful up there, Janine said. I nodded. After the recital, Janine handed Marisol a small stuffed rabbit and looked at me. I should have been braver sooner. I'm sorry I wasn't. I'm sorry I let you carry it alone. I thanked her. I did not say I forgave her, because forgiveness was not something I could hand over on a schedule. But I told her she could come to the next recital. She cried in the parking lot. I saw it through the rearview mirror as I pulled away. Gerald came to the townhouse once unannounced, to drop off a wooden step stool he had made for Marisol. He stood on the porch and did not ask to come in. Renata, he said, I should have asked more questions about where the money was going. I didn't, because I was afraid the answers would change how I saw my wife. He set the stool down. This is for the little one. No strings. I accepted it. Marisol uses it to reach the bathroom sink every morning. Claudette sent a letter, not an email, handwritten on plain stationery, 8 weeks after the meeting. She did not ask for forgiveness. She's funding the venue deposit. She wrote that she had begun seeing a financial counselor and was working to understand why she had treated her children's earnings as an extension of her own household. She wrote that she had closed the brokerage account. She wrote that Gerald had agreed to joint counseling. She did not mention Marisol. I read the letter twice. The handwriting was steady, which meant she had not written it in a rush of guilt. She had taken her time. I put the letter in a drawer and did not respond. Last Saturday evening, 6 months after the separation, I sat in my living room after Marisol was asleep. The house was quiet. The loose button on my gray peacoat was still loose. I picked up the coat from the hall chair, found a needle and thread in the junk drawer, and sewed the button back on. It took 4 minutes. I had been meaning to do it for 3 years. There had always been something more urgent, someone else's emergency. some accommodation that pushed my own small repair to the bottom of the list. I hung the coat in the closet and closed the door. There is a difference between loyalty and obedience that most families never name aloud because naming it would require someone to admit which one they have been demanding. Loyalty is a living agreement. It asks questions. It holds people accountable because it believes they are capable of better. It survives conflict because it is rooted in respect. Obedience is a closed system. It does not ask. It does not question. It measures devotion by how much a person is willing to absorb without flinching. I spent 7 years inside a family that called obedience by loyalty's name and punished anyone who noticed the difference. When Claudette applied to a school for my daughter, using money extracted from my savings and routed through a hidden account, she was not helping. She was demonstrating that inside her family, authority flows in one direction, and the role of a daughter-in-law is to sign where indicated. When Marcus told me to get out, he was not losing his temper. He was enforcing a boundary that had always existed. His mother's comfort outranked my dignity. Breaking that pattern did not make me brave, it made me late. But late is not the same as too late.